Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to Sid Mac YouTube channel. I thought today we'd do a sip and paint. Now, you could also not have to sip, you can also just watch. So today, we're gonna do this little painting. We're gonna do a sunset, and that's our lighthouse. And we're gonna keep the laptop here for reference. I've already taken liberties with getting a jump on this thing. So this is a small canvas, but I've taken an index card and I've kind of made a silhouette out of the lighthouse and landscape of the boulders. And as you can see in the picture, the lighthouse is very dark in color, so we can easily block that in, and we can easily block in the beach down here. And then we can work on the sky and the water and the reflection. So I hope you enjoy this video. And if you participate, you're just gonna need a canvas, any kind of, today I'm using acrylic, so whatever medium you wanna use. You can even use markers, crayons, pencil. All we're doing here is just being creative. There's no right way, no wrong way. Okay, I hope you enjoy. Okay, the first thing I do is I use a pie pan, and it's got foil, so it's disposable, cheap. I'm starting out with the basic colors of what I see in the picture. So I don't like to use black. You can, but for our beach isn't really black. So we're gonna use a dark brown. And this we can get into the specifics later, but this is just a basic brown. And I'm gonna add a little bit of some blue so we can get our sky in there. And we need some, I try to stick to the real basic colors, blues, yellow, green. Okay, so my makeshift palette on my pie pan with foil, I have some real basic colors here. I've got white, brown, blue, yellow, a little touch of orange, I didn't put a whole lot, and red, because we can make other variety of colors with the basics. So the first thing we're going to get started with is our sky. Okay, so I've added a little bit of gesso, which is the it just allows the acrylic paint to kind of flow a little easier on our sky. So I'm just gonna get that in a little bit, not a whole lot of it, and it's white, so I can be transparent with it. And I'm just kind of moving it on the canvas, and that's gonna help us create movement on the canvas. Okay, so we'll get that in there. And then we'll add the sky, easier. The other thing I did also was I've already added the silhouette of the lighthouse, and I just did it in a real basic pencil so you can paint right over it. And this is it's just a little flat brush. It's a little square, nothing fancy about it at all, just moving the paint onto the canvas. Because in our sky, I noticed that there's a lot of free-flowing clouds around the sunset. So for instance, you can see that these are nice, long, billowy clouds, and that's a lot of movement, but it's a soft wind. So that's why we're using the gesso, so we can create that softness in it. Okay, we're gonna create our sun. And the first thing we're gonna do, normally I would do the outskirts of the sky to bring the dark from the corners. But in this case, we're gonna go ahead and start in the middle, and we're gonna work our way out from the actual brightness of the sun, and then we'll move from there. So in this case, we're gonna get some really, really bright yellow going with a little bit of yellow and a touch of white, and we're just kind of making that as bright as we can. So we're just gonna start in the middle here. Our sun is kind of in the middle, but to the left of these are our lighthouse and our rocks. So we're just creating that yellowness right in here. And we're just putting it in there, and then we're moving outwards. And from that, we're gonna add a little bit of white in the middle, and then more of the yellow on the outskirts. And then we're gonna add a little touch of the red, and just the tiniest touch of orange, that brilliant orange there. And we're just gonna bring it on the bottom. It looks like it touches our water line. So if our water line is basically right here, the bottom of our sun, then we want to be at the bottom too. And then it kind of cascades out into the horizon. So you're just bringing out that brilliance this way. And this step here is what we call, this is just blocking. So as we move the picture along, you can always come in and soften the edges, deepen the colors to your liking. Okay, so that's pretty much our blocking of the sunset. Okay? Okay, so in our photo, a lot of the beach, it's dark time. It's, because sunset. So there's a lot of purple now permeating through the sky. So we've got our baseline of our orange. Now we're going to start bringing in the purples, and we're going to begin the purples in this area here, and we're going to work our way up the sky that way, because we like this, and we want to just kind of go this way, and we got to remember this color, because we're also going to bring it down into our water. So we'll do that next. Okay, so this is how we mix purple. We are taking a little bit of the red, a little bit of the blue, and we're getting a nice purple that we want to work with. Okay. So I just wanted to say, one of the things I'm starting is I started out slow here, making my purple, then I'm moving it this way, and to make it stretch, I'm adding a little bit of water, and then now I can control it a little more. And then we're gonna add touches of white so that we can control the cloud movement with that purple. So at this point now, what we're doing is we're doing a lot of blending of our blocked in colors. So I'm just trying to be really careful as I blend to make sure that when I'm blending, I have the coordinating color on my brush. So I don't want any blue on this as I'm trying to expand the yellow. So I want to keep making sure, like here's some white, so you want to just blend, blend, blend out and into that color that's next to it. So that's what we're going to work on, and we're going to work on it this way as well. Okay, so the last thing I did was I put in a little bit more white and I blended it this way. I took a little bit of water, not a lot, just enough to just kind of glaze over the colors. So the next thing I want to do is move on to another step now so that we can let our sky settle. Okay, so I've mixed my blue. I'm using a lot of blue, a touch of red, and a little tiny bit of white. And all I'm gonna do right now is just block in the ocean because I just need to have it there so I know where I'm going. So the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm looking at my picture and I see the edge of my rocks and then my horizon line that I kind of penciled in before. So I'm just gonna block in my ocean just like that. That's all I'm doing. The other thing I want to do is get my angle right. So my ocean's just kind of like this, and let's see, and then he kind of comes underneath the rocks a little bit and provides the base of that mountain. So this, it's not really a mountain, but this area here, which is the landscape for the lighthouse and the little house. So what I'm doing is I'm just judging that I only need like a little tiny bit of water there. The rest of that's going to be reflection and beach. So I just need a color. It doesn't matter really. It has to be, doesn't have to be perfect. But I'm just doing this so I can get my sense of where everything's going to sit. So I just am putting this in, and it's the ocean, because of the way the picture is taken, there's a little bit of an angle with it. So that's what I'm after, is this little bit of angle. And then we can always come back and clean up the ocean. So that's pretty much what I need. The other thing I want to kind of leave open here is for the reflection of the sunlight onto the beach. So I'm just kind of skipping that area here because in the picture from this area here, this is the mirror of the sunset. So I'm purposely leaving these little lines in there because we're going to accentuate where the sun hits the water. Okay, so the next piece I'm going to do is the reflection on the beach. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet my canvas, and now I'm going to use my acrylics a lot like I would use watercolors. So instead of the gesso, I'm actually going to use the water to wet my canvas so that I can get that glaze effect like you would do with watercolor. And see how that goes. Okay, so just real quick where we are now. So now we're working on the pinks, the purples, and I've taken a little purple and blue to give my shadow. So I'm trying to mimic upside down. So here's the peak of our lighthouse. So you want a little peak down here. And this outline right there is the outline of this hill. So what I'm doing is I'm watching the reflection on the picture, and really because of this is a shorter hill, it's supposed to be a little bit less in elevation than this side, so we'll put that in with the paint. But on the reflection, it's important to get that shadow right here to mimic what you would see on a reflection inside the water. And so that's why I'm not really worried about this reflection, because the reflection would be more inside the ocean, not so much on the beach as in the picture. And so that's why I'm really concentrating on this side of our reflection of the lighthouse. And then I'm also going to come in back into my sunset here, and I'm going to bring in this white faintly here. And according to the picture, it is, just below on the beach. So it's kind of jumps over the water. We'll highlight a little bit of the water later, but for now we're just going to make sure that comes in on the beach. Okay, then we'll move on. Okay, so we've blocked in the lighthouse, we've blocked in our beach, and the beach is darker. The darker is a really deep brown and a touch of dark blue. And I just, it's not a perfect mix. You don't want to make the two into one color. You want to add your brown and casually bring in your blue, and that way it takes on its own artistic effect, so it's not just one color. The next thing we're going to do is, since we've got in our reflection on the beach, we now need to go back through our water line. And this is actually, to me, now we're getting into the fun stuff because everything's blocked. So now we're going into our water line so we can really identify where the water stops and where the beach begins. So that's next. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the water line. So what I noticed when I stare at my picture, I try to envision where that water line would be, and I use the paint that's dried. It really does help to look at just natural shadows that just sort of happen on their own. So there's this little white line right in here, and then I envision that the water kind of drifts up a little bit here, comes under the darker part of the yellow where this is more faint. I think that water line would run right around in here, then kind of cascade. Right here's a natural blue. So I'm going to use that because that can be like a puddle that's on the beach. And so on a scale being flat, that will help us to identify the shadows and the foam that naturally creeps up on a beach. So that's what we're going to do next. So I'm using a really fine purple, really, really deep, and I'm going just under the white that was left by brush strokes, and that's what helps move the water line along, and you kind of follow the angle of what's already there. And it's got to be really, really faint, very flat. So you want to, when you take your brush into the purple, you want to really push it flat. Carefully following a vision of what that line probably looks like. I'm trying to get my brush even flatter, much lighter to the touch too. You're almost not touching the canvas just to make these lines. And I'm skipping right here because I'm trying to leave that reflection and just insinuate almost with ink that there is a shadow there, because your eyes are, you can trick your eyes, and the viewer's eyes, if you're just bringing this line like that, and you don't want to make it real thick, it's just an insinuation that that's where the beach begins and where the water line is coming up. Remember we said we'd use this as like a puddle of flat water? So we're just gonna come around that with our line, our shadow. Okay, so our shadow's in. One thing I was watching was this line here is supposed to be our foam. This is a back wave, and this is against the mountain. This one here, I don't like the angle. I think it would better serve the picture if we used the point of it and moved it down, and we'll cover this up here and just make that more of a water line. And that will help the water flow this way in our picture. So what I'm doing, I'm using this really, really fine brush, very small. See my hand? Very small. And what I'm going to do is I'm taking just a real basic blue. I'm not mixing any color in it at all. I'm just going to take it and I'm going to use it to color in this place here and leave a tip of this white. And I can see too that the purple or the blue is not as dark as I would like, so I can always just come back into that. I'm gonna highlight just underneath these waves here with my blue, and those are little shadows as well, because as you know, when water comes into the ocean, it has waves, and each wave has its own little shadows. So we use that blue to do the work for us. Okay, so now we'll come back in with a little bit of white and blue mix to go on top of that shadow that we just highlighted right here, like right in here. We're gonna come in with a real fine white. Okay. The next color for our little waves is I'm taking, this is a basic blue, and I'm adding white, so I get like a little, not really a turquoise, because if this was a daytime picture, it's fun to make the turquoise because that's when the sun is really shining through it. So for this case, what we're doing is we're going to use this blue. This is the dark blue and the white mixed together. And we're going to use this just to get our little foam started, and then we'll come back in with the white. So what I'm doing is, remember this one here, we decided we would bring the angle kind of this way. Now that's a little thicker of a line than I like, so what I'm going to do is try to flatten my brush. I'm going to pull it down and try to take off as much of that as I can. And then I'm just gonna like take the next line ever so slightly. Okay, trying to bring that line in here. So let's speed some things up. Okay, I just made a lighter colored blue. I'm taking the existing color we used, taking the white, and I'm just lightening it up a little more. I also, like, the brush has already got a tiny tip of water in it, which helps me keep the paint really loose. And our goal now is to go into the tops of this little bit of highlight and toss in some little wave action where you can actually start to see the foam. And I'm barely touching the tops of these little waves. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now I'm going into the a little tiny bit of white and a little tiny bit of red, because I want to just kind of highlight. You see this area here where you have some ocean waves that have the sunset in it. So I'm just doing the same application, very light touched, and I'm just going on top of what's already there carefully to just kind of bring it out. It actually needs more orange. I think that's got too much white in it. So I'm gonna carefully bring back that color. See the orange popping through, and being super careful because it's translucent, you know, it's assuming that the waves are actually breaking back there. Okay, one of the things I thought I'd better come back and talk about is on the beach. Since I had orange in my brush, I started using some orange in here, and then I went ahead and used some of my pink, Make Like a Rosé, and then trying to mimic the top, the sunset. So right in here, where we have some purple, I'm just scrubbing it into my canvas. So it's a lot like coloring. You're just, you know, canvas kind of soaks up the oil. So if you can scrub it in, it's probably a little better to do that. And then as it dries, then you can kind of see where you need to go back. So in here, you know, this is a darker color. Purple's it's accenting where it was in the sky. And so, you know, you can just you can always go back and change color. That's the nice thing about acrylics. It's forgiving. So if I feel like it's not blending in enough, the purple, then I just go back and just keep working at it and letting it dry into the canvas. And then what we'll do next is we'll just keep adding the colors in various places. But otherwise, it's coming together pretty good. Okay, so I think we're pretty done. The main thing that I just kind of did was I used that pen. I used this pen and I did the outline of where the water meets the beach. And then I just added some light highlights here to show the flatness of that pooling water on the beach. And I'm pretty satisfied with it. I'm gonna go ahead and sign off on this one and call this one done. I hope you enjoyed the video.